everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and today I want to talk to you guys about why there is no such thing as magical training secrets and aren't already publicly known that anyone on YouTube or anyone selling a book is going to magically discover. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And the reason it's important to talk about this is so that people don't get scammed, they don't get hustled, and they don't get caught up in this idea that someone out there is going to teach you or show you something that isn't already widely known regarding training. And this is a really bad tendency you see in the bodybuilding world, and the reason for that is that the bodybuilding world has historically been completely detached from exercise science. People who compete in bodybuilding generally work on bro lore. They usually are sometimes 30, 40, 50 years behind sports sciences in regarding to what they come up with. Like they come up with things, oh, there's this new method coming out, and then you realize it was studied by the Russians in the 1960s already. And it's already publicly known in everyone in strength and conditioning circles. Meaning people within that community tend to rotate through and cycle information that's already publicly known, publicly available, and they think that they've discovered some big secret or something. Or they'll try to market it as a big secret, and sometimes it's stuff that's been tested and been found to not even work as well as conventional style training, or it's something that's already been known and coaches have perfected better than they have 30 years ago, and they're actually using a variation of it that they're trying to teach or sell that's already been worked on and fine-tuned better than what they're selling and is already out there for free if you just go look at what various coaches around the world are doing. And the reason for that is that, again, you got to be careful of clever marketing and gimmicks. And the reality is, guys, there isn't a lot left to discover as far as anything that's going to give you major gains in strength, size, muscle mass, anything like that, explosiveness, speed, because this stuff has already been so heavily studied by people who are oftentimes innovators who have a lot of financial investment in getting this right, because there's so much money in sports because of the Cold War and the amount of pressure that was put upon coaches and researchers and everyone else during the Cold War and everything to find these secrets to exercise science to give them a small advantage, that millions of dollars were already spent researching and doing muscle biopsies and studying the body before most of us were even born to learn these secrets and things that are out there. And you know what the difference is that sometimes what we're finding is a little bitty secret. It's really only worth 0.5% advantage, but it's already widely used in the training world, things such as linear periodization. So that's a perfect example, something that might give you a 1% edge over the course of a year, but it's been implemented since before you and I were born, because researchers and scientists spent a lot of money and effort studying this because they needed their athletes to be better than the other country's athletes. Or we needed NFL players to be bigger, stronger, faster than the other team so that they could make an extra $50 million that year. All right, so when you had this sort of financial pressure and political pressure and money and power and research into place for decades trying to perfect these things, it's already all out there. It's already generally published, and the odds that some person on YouTube or some person writing for a bodybuilding magazine or a bodybuilding website is going to discover something, someone who doesn't have $1 million facility, doesn't have muscle biopsy machines, DEXA scans machines, doesn't have access to 100 different people to study, there's no way that they're going to discover something new and be able to test it and implement it as well as all these various coaches and researchers already have. And what I'm basically saying is you're unlikely to find anything new, anything special, and even the stuff that I promote, everything that I promote as far as training here, guys, and I give people different advice for different protocols, phases, and their training, everything else, it's publicly available knowledge. Quite frankly, all I do is look at all the total sum of information and knowledge out there and try to condense it down and put it into usable formats for people and put a lot of it out on YouTube. Why? Because it's just about data mining at this point. That's all it is. Looking at the data that's out there and trying to make it apply to people. The information's already out there. None of it's my own. None of it's new. There's already coaches and experts and PhDs and people who've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of various elite athletes around the world who've already perfected most of this stuff. They really have. And so it gets really scary when this is all well known. We pretty much understand how to make a bicep as big as possible before drugs go in and after drugs go into the mix. All right, this stuff's already understood. muscle growth, strength, speed. This stuff's pretty well understood, and the odds that anyone is going to stumble across something that's going to give a big advantage is pretty slim. So people trying to sell this stuff like it's secret knowledge or sell you workout programs or any of that, guys, that's nonsense. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no need for any of that. The best programs are already out there free. If you dig around, you look around, you can teach people the concepts and they can kind of figure a lot of it out themselves from there. And the thing is, here's the other big problem. Besides people just getting ripped off, there's a lot of people out there who promote methods that are either already time proven and they try to put their own name on it. They try to put their own name on it when it's actually well understood stuff like high frequency training, Bulgarian light, stuff like that. That's already understood. Hopefully most of you understand that Bulgarian light was already perfected before most of you were even born. Then you'll have guys coming out trying to rename it stuff like overtraining or like nucleus overload training. It's like, guys, it's just called Bulgarian light. And it's based off the original Bulgarian training, which had psychological components to it, not just physical, that won a bunch of gold medals in Olympic lifting from a little tiny country. And then those methods were looked at and broken down and understood, and it's been implemented. People already know how to do all this stuff. They've known it for 30 years. It's not new. And it doesn't need fancy names. This is just understood forms of training. Or they come in, like overload training, and where they're trying to have you do heavy partial reps. Well, you know what? The research actually suggests that at best, heavy partials might equal the growth of conventional styles of training, but they, in many cases, produce inferior growth. And that's the thing. People say, okay, well, if someone makes gains doing something, it must work. Well, that's true. It does work. Anything that makes you bigger or stronger or helps you lose fat or change your body composition clearly works. But that's also like saying, well, I got on my bicycle and I drove from Houston to Dallas. I know someone who did it, so I'm going to ride a bicycle from Houston to Dallas. And I might say, well, if you got in a car, you get there a lot quicker. And also there's jet flights. You do know there's things called jets, right? You can jump in a jet, be there in less than an hour. You can walk in the airport, be checked in, and jump on a short flight. You can be right up there to Dallas in no time. Unless you really need your vehicle and stuff there, in which case, okay, drive. You can be there in 4 hours. It just doesn't need to take a 24-hour trip on a bike to get there. But that's honestly how people look at this stuff. Because someone else has done it, it must be the best way, or it must be a really good way. Just because it got someone from point A to point B doesn't mean that there's not 3 or 4 other methods already in existence that do it better. But the thing is, a lot of the YouTubers and fitness YouTubers and people in the fitness world thrive on the fact that their audience is ignorant and they maybe don't know that a jet exists yet. And people say, well, that's impossible. We're using that as an analogy. But if you've never heard of a jet and you see a guy travel there on a bicycle or a four-wheeler, you might think that's a good way to get there because he did it. I want to go up there. But there are more efficient and faster ways to get there. There are better ways to get there. And that's what people aren't necessarily being told. And so people will cycle through this different stuff and act like they have some new special gimmick. And it's not. And in fact, sometimes it might only be 90% as good of what's already conventionally known to be used to reach this same goal out there. And that's kind of the other thing. You really shouldn't need to experiment. This stuff has been studied and tested and researched by some of the best coaches in the world, some of the best researchers in the world for decades now. And at this point, the odds that you're going to self-experiment and come up with a better system, even for you personally, than something that's already been developed by a top coach out there, who probably has been publishing it for free and it's already available out there from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the odds that you're going to get something that's as good as that is pretty slim. The odds of you getting something better would be like winning the lottery. You're not going to self-experiment and find something that works better than what's already proven to work in 90% of athletes at your specific stage with your specific goals. You shouldn't need to guess. This stuff there's information out there. I put out free programs for people in different phases with different goals, and I'm just one of many people who do it. There's no reason for people to need to self-experiment, and you certainly don't need to pay someone for a program these days unless it's a custom-tailored program and they have credentials. And I'm going to be honest, if you're buying a program from someone like Kelly Muscle or Mike Rashid, who just seem to be ignoramuses, who have no background in strength and conditioning at all, they have no background at all in these fields, probably never read a single book on training periodization or programming, the odds that they're going to give you something as good as what you could go find for free, probably not going to happen. Just statistically not going to happen. And these are guys who blast a lot of drugs. They get their physiques largely from drugs and genetics. Doesn't mean they have any real knowledge of training. So just keep that in mind, guys. A lot of these people who are trying to sell you secrets probably don't have any secrets. And what they are selling or putting out sometimes as a secret or a new magical training method might actually only be 90% as good as what was already available before they even came out talking about it. Just normal conventional training. There's a reason different forms of training are conventional for different goals, because they're proven to work in large numbers of people already, and they're proven to be very effective and generally better than a lot of other methods that have already been tried for that. And that's how they become conventional. That's how they become conventional, is because they're proven to work slightly better or a lot better than a lot of other stuff that's already been tried for decades. And that's what it comes down to, guys. There's no magical secrets under the sun. And even stuff that you might see someone doing that you think is magical, someone doing overspeed eccentrics with band work. People have been doing that for decades for certain sports. There are coaches who teach it and implement it for specific goals. It's not even new. Even though it might look exotic to you, it's pretty old and it's not really a secret. It's publicly available, been published probably before you were ever born. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.